Hello and welcome to France 24's weekly music show. I'm Marjorie Hash. Now, if you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the world, be it some of the depressing, if not harrowing news, or simply just the noisy daily bustle taking place around you, my guest's new record might just be the right thing to soothe you. Her sixth album, All Lifelong, which was composed for a choir, brass ensemble and pipe organ, is sonically calming and meditative. This experimental artist, who straddles the digital and analog worlds, also counts amongst her fans Radiohead's Tom York. Kali Malone, thank you so much for joining me on the Arts 24 set.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Now, I read you grew up in Colorado and you went to college thinking you were going to study to become a farmer, and then suddenly, whoop, you go off to Sweden and fall in love with organs. How did this happen?
Oh, wow. Well, I wasn't only studying agriculture. I was studying sustainable agriculture, but I was also studying liberal arts, social sciences, mathematics, and photography. And I was also studying classical vocal music from a young age. I was really into experimental music from a young age and improvisation. And I met some musicians in New York City when I was about 16 years old. One was the composer Ellen Arkbro, and she invited me to visit her in Stockholm, and I went to spend a month with her, and she introduced me to the music studio EMS, Elektron Music Studio, which has a really long history of electroacoustic music, and that was really what sparked my passion and ambition for pursuing composition.
That's interesting. And so in Sweden, you discovered the organ as an instrument. What was it that attracted you to it?
Well, I was interested in the organ from a tuning perspective, and it wasn't until about 2016 that I started working with it. And when I first started working with the organ, I was actually working as an organ tuner, and I was apprenticing with the organ builder Jan Börjesson, and we were traveling around to small villages in Sweden and to churches within Stockholm to repair and tune the pipe organs. And it was during this time that I started to transfer some of the compositional tools and techniques that I was making in a computer program called Pure Data, which is an open source coding program. And I started finding the similarities of the compositional techniques were really similar to early polyphonic music. And so I thought it would be interesting to try to play those on the pipe organ. However, I wasn't an organist or even a keyboard player at that time, so I would record each voice part by part. Wow. And then I was interested in spatializing that within an acousmonium, which is a speaker system that has many, many speakers all around the room. So I was quite interested in it from an electroacoustic standpoint, which is really different from where I am now, where I'm actually performing the pieces acoustically in concert halls and churches.
And with this acoustic aspect that you took on board, I guess, especially with this latest record, what was it like composing then for a choir directly compared to composing for an organ?
It was really incredible. This compositional process that I had for All Lifelong was about 3 years, and I never wanted it to end. It was just such an amazing place to be, not only because there was the pandemic and it was this sort of refuge that I had in my creativity, to have a lot of time to reflect and compose without having to present anything right away. And so I was able to work with the ensemble over several years to tweak and adjust the compositions to where they are on the record right now. And it was a really different point of departure for me to work with language, because most of my music is instrumental, and to work with poetry and to work with the human voice, which is so fragile and vulnerable and really different than the organ, where you need to leave space for the voice to breathe, and you need to write things that are comfortable and enjoyable for the singer to sing. So I really loved this process because it also reconnected me with my own voice. Growing up as a vocalist, I made sure that I could sing every part and that every part was very fluid and could be embodied by the singer. And it was just incredibly overwhelming when I heard the pieces sung for the first time, which is in this video. This is the first time I ever heard the pieces sung live by the choir.
Well, how about we get a little clip so that our viewers can take a listen. A track taken from Kali Malone's latest album, All Life Long, and performed by the Macadam Ensemble. The songs on the new record are taken from Arthur Symons' 1901 poem, The Crying of Water, and Italian philosopher Giorgio Agamben's essay on praise of profanation. Speaking of profanation, you made headlines, unfortunately, last year because one of your concerts in Brittany came under siege by an extremist right-wing Catholic group. And you've noted that more and more musicians are suffering this sort of, extremist movements against them. And what's it like as a musician when someone, stops you from performing something that does nothing profanic at all?
Yeah, this was really unfortunate, and as you said, it's pretty terrifying that it's happening to so many artists and musicians right now. It happened to my good friend Anna von Hauswolf, who's also an organist in Brittany the year before, and so I was worried that something like this would happen when I went to perform, because it is a delicate thing to play secular music in churches, and I always go with the most respect towards the people who work in the church and the people who utilize the church for their liturgical activities. And my audience is also incredibly respectful too. So it just felt like this huge misunderstanding, and I think it was a firsthand experience of how misinformation on the internet can lead to really dangerous censorship and protests.
And you're going to be playing on a number of different kind of organs across Europe. You've got tour dates in Glasgow and also in Amsterdam, and then 2 special dates at l'Église du Saint-Esprit in Paris in September. Just very quickly, can you tell us, is it difficult moving from one organ to the next?
It is, but that's my favorite thing, because it keeps me really flexible and open-minded, because I have to bring my music and my compositions to different organs which sound very different. And I have to find my connection to them every time. And so sometimes it's really a struggle at first when doing the registration of the organ, because organs have many different types of timbres. They sort of resemble an orchestra, so you have to pick the different timbres that you're going to use. And sometimes I don't find the right timbre at first, and it can be a struggle. But then 4 hours pass, and I'm working, and then I like unlock.
You've adapted.
I unlock the music, and it's I love that there's no redundancy in the process. That every time there's a point of losing control and facing that resistance, but then it suddenly makes me more sensitive to the process in general, because I have to find the unique points of every organ and really find where the instrument sings.
Okay, well, I'm afraid we're going to have to move on to some other news and brief that's come up. And another avant-gardist artist that I think you may like a lot is going to release his new record. It's John Cale, who came to fame as part of the Velvet Underground in New York in the 1960s. The prolific Welsh songwriter and producer is releasing this week Poptical Illusion, which is the 18th solo record he's releasing. And as you can tell from the video, which was directed by Abigail Portner, John Cale is very much involved in all the creative aspects of the media he produces. This is the track Shark Shark. One of the new John Cale tracks. You've been living in France and also in Stockholm for a while. I don't know if you've been getting into French hip hop at all, or is that something completely out there?
I do have some friends who are more in trap and DJ world, but not necessarily hip hop.
Well, how about we check out this rapper? His name is Soprano, and he recently welcomed the Olympic flame to the southern city of Marseille, and he's getting ready to release the 8th studio album, Freedom, on the 21st of June. Now, it's inspired just as much by old school French hip hop, US rap, and West African music. For the last decade, he's been a bit more pop, which, if you like to dance, is good news. Here's Facile à danser.
C'est vrai qu'on a dit dans la vie, mon ami, faut oser. Mets ta mi-chemise avec jogging, mon ami, faut doser. C'est vrai qu'on a dit dans la vie, mon ami, faut oser. Mais avec toi, on ne sait plus sur quel pied danser. Facile à danser. À chacun sa façon de danser.
Francis Soprano there, and Kali Malone, thank you so much for coming on France 24 to talk about your latest album. Remember to go and check out her tour dates, because if you can see her live, it's a once in a concert experience, because every organ is individual. France 24's latest news is coming up in just a few minutes. We're going to be playing out with Billie Eilish, who dropped a new self-directed music video at the weekend for the track Shihiro, taken from her latest album Hit Me Hard and Soft. In it, Billie escapes a semi-empty building before tumbling and fighting.
They told me they were only curious. Now it's serious. Open up the door, can you open up the door? I know you said before you can't cope with anymore. It told me it was war, said you'd show me what's in store. I hope it's not for sure. Can